the colors of Christmas.
Green. Now it's blue.
You're live.
And good evening, hockey fans, and welcome into a late night edition of ACHA tonight, day 3 here at the 2019 ACHA National Championships in Frisco, Texas. I'm Matt Coma. That is Quinn Kuski joining me today. Quinn, we got to see day 3, the second half of the round of 16. The final 8 has been set, and we're kind of starting to see who's going to be the contenders and the pretenders here in Division 1.
Yeah, we are, and I'll tell you right now, we had 4 games today, and all 4 of those games, the teams that won looked really good in doing so. All 4 teams, I think, can make a legitimate run at winning this whole tournament, and 4 teams, and I'm very excited to see what they do tomorrow. All
right, so it's been pretty much all chalk as we've gone so far here in this Division 1 tournament. The top 8 seeds move on to the round of 8. They'll play tomorrow here at the Comerica Center, but before we get to that, let's take a look at the day that was in Division 1. We'll start with Game 1 highlights from our first game. Stony Brook taking on Iowa State. It's the 5-12 matchup, and CJ Banzer starts it open for the Cyclones.
Yeah, I mean, Banzer just walking right in out in front, one-on-one with Shipman, and he takes a shot. I mean, that's a good shot right past that right side of Shipman. And, I mean, I feel like it's one he might have wanted to have back.
Yeah, that made it 1-0 Cyclones. Second period, Aaron Azevedo gets the goal. As we take another look at it, that made it 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, it's just right out in the slot. Potts one right up in the corner. Nothing you can do about it if you're Shipman. That's just right place, right time.
Just a little bit later in the period, Jackson Grallum gets that goal, right place, right time for him. That made it 3-0. Then we move to the third period. It's another one for Grallum as he just holds on to that one, able to slot it through, and it's a 4-0 lead.
Yeah, Grallum with 2 goals in this one, and that matches his entire regular season total of 2 goals.
Yeah, and that's how it would end. 4-0 is the final score. A dominating performance from the 5 seed. We saw that from a lot of the top seeds so far over the last 2 days. 4-0 the final score. Shots 31-26 in favor of Iowa State. That looks a little close if you look at it by paper. Neither team did very well on the power play and stuff, but you knew that Iowa State, they controlled this game from the get-go.
Yeah, Iowa State, they kept Stony Brook. If you watched that game, Stony Brook was on the wall the entire game. They never got any space whatsoever. They might have had 26 shots, but we're counting wrist shots from the red line. So they didn't really have 26 shots.
Yeah, so Iowa State, it's their first game. All these teams playing their first game of the tournament. We've seen the playing games. They had to play 2 days in a row. The top seeds got to play for the first time yesterday. These teams got their first crack at it. What did you see from Iowa State here that kind of motivates you moving forward?
Oh, well, they just played a swarming defense. If you're playing Iowa State and you're claustrophobic, you're going to be in for a rough day because they're going to be all over you, all over your forwards. They pinning them up along the wall. They will not let you work your way into the slot and get into space.
All right, let's take a look at Game 2 highlights from today. We saw the 6-11 matchup, a matchup of the semifinals from a season ago. Illinois taking on Minot State in this contest, and Minot kind of took over from the get-go. They roll off 3 unanswered goals to start. Justin Metcalf gets it going with his first goal of the tournament.
Yeah, Minot State, they came out looking like a whole other animal than what we've seen in this tournament in years past. I mean, a 6 seed instead of a 1 seed, and honestly, this was the best I've seen them look.
Yeah, as you see, Minot State opening the scoring there. Justin Metcalf just kind of walks in and goes 5-hole. That made it 1-0 Beavers. Still in the first period, Austin Killam, right place, right time, puts the rebound home to make it 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a shot. You shoot that puck in far pad. It's never a bad shot because it can kick out right to the back door for a rebound like that.
So 2-0 Minot State after 1. Second period, Kyle Lipinski gets the rebound at the top of the point, and he finds the back of the net, makes it 3-0.
Yeah, Lipinski only had 1 goal in the regular season, and that was an absolute snipe. That's a goal scorer's goal. He's been here before. He knows what he's doing.
That made it 3-0 Minot State. It looked like the route was on, but Luke Forfar opens the scoring with a little puck luck for Illinois.
Yeah, it's just something. I've seen it so many times, and I still cringe a little bit every time I see it because it's just such bad luck. Up off the blocker, thought it was going up behind the net, winds up chipping right in behind him.
Ends up getting a little assist from the defenseman there. That made it 3-1, but third period, Minot State, they regained that 3-goal lead. This time, Davis Sheldon gets the goal, makes it 4-1.
Yeah, Sheldon leading scorer on Minot State, and he shows why right there with just a beautiful goal from the slot.
Nothing Barnhart could really do without his stick there. That made it 4-1, but Illinois made a great comeback in this. Casper Ryba gets the goal there. That makes it 4-2 about halfway through that third period, and Illinois started to have some life in that final 10 minutes.
Yeah, we just finished watching a pretty dominant win, and we thought we were going to get one again, and Illinois made it very interesting.
Thanks to that goal, that made it 4-3. Tyler Opilka just kind of coming into the slot and had that shot and just kind of wristed it by, able to get the goal. That made it 4-3. But the Illini trying to get it at the end there, just couldn't get it. The turnover there with just seconds left as Shesha gets the empty net goal. That made it 5-3. That's the final score in this one. Shots 32-20 in favor of Minot State. They get the lone power play goal as well as Navarro gets the 2 assists. He was the top point getter for Minot State. And the Beavers, they look like a really solid team as well. They had a little hiccup in the third period, but they looked pretty dominant today as well.
Yeah, they did look really good. And I mean, Illinois, they tried to make a pushback. They made the game more interesting, and that was a game that was very hyped up going in because of that rematch of last year's semifinals, and it lived up to the hype, but Minot able to get their revenge game there. And I mean, you have a lot of players on Minot that were there last year where, you know, they just want to get to that title championship. They want that shot, and this might be their year.
Yeah, we saw a couple of rematches already. We saw UNLV Ohio yesterday. We saw Robert Morris take on Lindenwood. The team that was looking for the revenge didn't quite get it in those contests, but this is the first one that Minot State, they had that semifinal deep in their minds in this one, and they came out and showed it.
Yeah, they came out looking angry, and they played angry, and they scored goals early and often and wound up just getting too big of a lead for Illinois to pull off the comeback.
All right, so Minot State punches their ticket to the Elite Eight here in the D1 bracket. Let's move on to Game 3 as we take a look at the third time slot, Central Oklahoma against Davenport. It's the 7-10 matchup in this tournament. Central Oklahoma in this one for the second straight year. They won in overtime against Liberty a season ago. This time around taking on Davenport, and it was all Panthers from the get-go.
Yeah, I talked with Thomas Biondo, who is Davenport's play-by-play guy, and he's, you know, with us here in this tournament. And I asked him, I said, did you see this coming from Davenport? Even he said no. This was an incredible performance from Davenport. They played fast, passes were on target, putting together some gorgeous goals, and they had a few just unlucky bounces. This game could have been a whole lot worse than it wound up being. I could have seen 12, 13 goals out of Davenport if they'd gotten luckier.
Well, they put 5 goals up in the first period alone. They just kind of set the tone, and then the physicality took over. You can tell when a game gets that out of hand that quick. That's when the extended hits happen, the little pushes and shoves, the fights that we saw, a lot of penalties in this contest. As we look at the stats in this one, the penalties are penalty minutes 12-18 in favor of this one. The Davenport ended up taking more penalty minutes than Central Oklahoma did, but it was Davenport that ended up getting the win, 8-3 the final score.
Yeah, a lot of those penalties came at the end of the game when, you know, things were out of hand, players were upset with one another. We had a couple situations where a player took a shot like 5 seconds after a whistle, and that's never going to go over well. You take a slap shot on a goalie from point-blank range after a whistle, and, you know, that instantly led to a gathering. Very next possession down the ice, Davenport does the same thing in response to the Central Oklahoma doing it. Both. I'm not sure whether or not the Davenport player is allowed to play in the next game, as it depends on how the refs put in the penalty. But that, you know, I mean, letting your emotions get away from you, that can damage your team now down the line.
Yeah, moving forward, just look, one little final note on Central Oklahoma. 0 for 9 on the power play. They had so many opportunities with a man up to try and get back into this game. They got that goal right before the first period ended, but they couldn't really get any momentum thanks to Davenport's speed and toughness.
Yeah, I mean, Davenport, they were just all over them. They're just such a fast hockey team, and they completely dominated the attack. It didn't matter how many power plays Central Oklahoma got because Davenport was so fast they could just pick up the puck and rag it around and kill a penalty.
All right, let's talk about the nightcap that pushed us back a little bit. We had a couple of delays thanks to the glass. 3 different times we had to repair the glass here at the Comerica Center. That pushed us back to this time slot that we have right now in Arizona Liberty, and it was pretty close early on, both teams getting a goal in that first period, but Liberty really poured it on the final 2 periods.
Yeah, they did, and it all started with that second period, which was kind of an extended second period, 23 minutes due to that glass mishap. But Arizona, in that 23 minutes, they recorded 1 shot on goal. Liberty recorded over 20 shots on goal in the exact same amount of time Arizona records 1. And I mean, part of that being Arizona's penalty trouble. But even more important than that was Arizona came into this tournament with the most shots on average of any team in the tournament. They were averaging almost 50 shots a game, and they come out and put up 17. Far and away their lowest shot total of the season. And I don't know if maybe the lights were just too bright for them, but Liberty gave them all they could handle and then some.
Yeah, as we take a look at the shot count, was 42-17 in favor of Liberty. They dominated this contest as the penalties just kept piling up for Arizona. They kept losing their heads a little bit. I think there's that 5-minute major in that second period, or Yeah, in that second period, that really turned the tide for this this game. That's when Liberty really took a hold of this one.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think Liberty got 2 goals during that 5-minute major, and that pushed that scoreline to 3-1. At that point, Arizona was getting a little bit more desperate, trying to push for more offense, but they weren't even getting shots on frame. I mean, they went 17 minutes without a single shot, and you're not going to win a game if that's happening.
Yeah, so Liberty now punches their ticket. It's the top 4 seeds today. They all won. That sets up 1 through 8. It's going to be a great look at the bracket as we move forward for Division I. You'll see Lindenwood take on this Liberty team that we just saw in the nightcap. You'll see Michigan Dearborn against Davenport. You'll have Minot State taking on Adrian, and then Ohio taking on Iowa State. 4 really good games tomorrow, and it should be a really fun tournament to watch tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio, Iowa State, those are 2 teams. They know each other, and they do not like each other. And that's going to be a very fun game. That's our 10 o'clock slot, followed right up by Adrian Minot. I mean, that's your 1 and 2 seed from last year. Those are 2 just storied franchises in the ACHA. That's just a matchup that's like a dream playoff matchup, and that's going to be a really fun one to watch.
All right, let's see what's on tap for Division I. We'll take a look at it here. That's the time slots for tomorrow. It kicks off with that 4-5 matchup, as Quinn mentioned. You're going to be on that call for that one. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
I'm very excited to call that game. That's going to be 2 just powerhouse teams and 2 very different styles. You have Ohio with a fast-paced offense, and you have Iowa State. They're very defensive. They play that counterattack game, and they play that swarming defense. They want to slow play down, pin you along the boards, wait for there to be the slightest little opportunity, and they're going to jump on it.
Yep, and we'll see Minot State take on Adrian in that second time frame, the 6-3 matchup. I think that's the game to watch tomorrow. Adrian kind of sleptwalked through their game against Missouri State yesterday, and Minot State looked pretty darn good. They could get that upset.
Yeah, Adrian, you're the defending champions. There's a lot of pressure just because of that alone. And they wound up winning 1-0, but that was against Missouri State, and Minot's a much better team than Missouri State. You're not gonna shut out Minot, so you're gonna need more than 1 goal if you plan on winning that game.
Yeah, the third game of the night, Davenport against Michigan Dearborn. Michigan looked pretty solid yesterday. Davenport the same today. What do you expect out of that matchup?
I'm calling the upset right now. Hot take of the broadcast. Davenport's winning that game, and I think they might win it handedly.
Yeah, they looked pretty darn good today. And then the nightcap, Lindenwood taking on Liberty. Lindenwood, of course, they've been dominant all season long. They're trying to get to that national championship tournament. They take Liberty on in the nightcap tomorrow.
Yeah, Lindenwood, Liberty. If you're Liberty, you got in some penalty trouble today. I mean, that also just happens, when you have a blowout game like that. Emotions were running high, but you cannot go to the box against Liberty. Liberty's power play is hitting at 38% on this season. That's unheard of levels of numbers. And if you're playing against a team that's doing that, you can't go to the box. You will pay. And if they go to the box, they will lose that game.
All right, we're getting down to crunch time in Division I. The Elite 8 kick it off tomorrow. 4 games on the docket here at the Comerica Center, and we'll have it all right here on the ACHA Network. All 4 games streamed live on our YouTube page. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Brett Luthner and Andrew Shapiro join me. We'll talk Division II as Day 2 of pool play began over in Plano, Texas. We'll break that down coming up next as you're watching ACHA Tonight, breaking down Day 3 here at the 2019 ACHA National Championships. We'll be right back.
Come on! You know the answer. You studied for this. Come on. Timmy! Come on, Timmy. You got this, son. Pencil to paper. Focus. Come on, Timmy. Focus. Focus. Take the puck. There you go. Skate! Skate! Pass it! You call that a pass? What are you doing? You missed the puck! Come on!
Skating was hard at first. Sometimes I fell, but I always got back up. Now when I'm skating, I feel like a rocket, or maybe a race car. Something really fast. It's my second favorite feeling. Scoring is my favorite. I think I like it even more than birthday cake.
know the answer. You studied for this. Come on. Timmy! Come on, Timmy. You got this, son. Pencil to paper. Focus.
Come on, Timmy. Focus. Focus. Take the puck. There you go. Skate. Skate. Pass it. You call that a pass? What are you doing? You missed the puck. Come on.
There are a few things that come along that change the course of history. Inventions or developments that reshape society. They usually aren't appreciated at first. In fact, they're often scoffed at. What good will that be?
Hello? Hi.
Surely that can't be practical.
She loves to see you.
But then, slowly, over time, the greatness of these achievements become manifest.
Hi!
Until one day, you ask yourself how you ever lived without them. That's the nature of turning points. They bring us to new roads and new heights. They open doors we never thought possible. So it's important that we go forward together.
I'm here with Gina.
That our growth might not just benefit the great, but the good also. In small ways, and in grand ones.
Dad.
The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little.
At Wilson Electronics, we push every day to amplify the power of communication, to connect those who love and those who cannot live without it.
And welcome back to ACHA tonight as we break down day 3 of the 2019 ACHA National Championship Tournaments. We've talked about Division 1. It's time to move on to Division 2 as we move down the map down to Plano, Texas. Joining me, Brett Luthner and Andrew Shapiro. They've been there all day long for the past 2 days. Nice enough to stay up on the midnight hour with us here on ACHA tonight. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thanks for having a little bit of a technical difficulties down there with the glass.
Yeah, 3 times. I'll ask both of you guys. Have you guys ever seen that many delays in a game before?
No, I usually get one every like 5 games, if that.
Yeah, I had 1 delay for glass maybe, but that's about it. Never 3 in a day.
All right, well, I know you two have to get back at it again bright and early, so we'll get you guys out of here. So let's quickly get into the games. Let's start in Pool A. The first game we want to talk about, NC State and Northern Colorado. The Southeast number 4 taking on the West number 2, and an upset right off the bat as North Carolina State gets that win in that game.
I'm not so sure it was really an upset because I thought North
Try
Carolina
it
State played a
loose
pretty
right at
good
the
game.
doorstep. Here comes Cincinnati. Puck loose. 5
and
seconds.
took the game
4,
by the
3,
scruff.
2.
And that gets
And
the
they
game.
score.
That of course ices the game up there.
That was the Cincinnati.
That was the
was
Cincinnati
Cincinnati
game. We'll
game.
talk about that
Yeah,
in
we'll get
just
to that in a
a
bit.
little bit. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. That was the Cincinnati finish. We'll get to that in a moment. But back to this one. Northern Colorado had a stranglehold on this game, but North Carolina State was able to come back in this one and get the win.
Yeah, because North Carolina State, they do have some good offense on that team, and they were able to. They mounted some pressure. Northern Colorado just you could see the steady decline in it, and North Carolina State eventually overtook them.
Yeah, absolutely. North Carolina State, I mean, they came into the tournament at a perfect 27-0, and there's a reason that they came into that tournament at 27-0, is they're a pretty good team. They did have the first loss of the tournament and the first loss of their season yesterday, but they came back and rebounded with a good hard win today over Northern Colorado.
All right, so NC State, they had a glimmer of hope of making it out of pool play with that win over Northern Colorado, but the late game trying against UMass, the Minutemen just too strong in this one. They beat Trine 5-2 in this one, and they get to punch their ticket to the semis.
Yeah, it was just a win and you're in for UMass, and it was a little bit close first half of the game, and then UMass showed their class in the game and really just took it over and rode it on out to the win.
Yeah, 5-2 victory for the Minutemen there, in pretty convincing fashion, too, for UMass as they do punch their ticket to the national semifinals.
Keep in mind, too, 18 shots on goal, but it was quality, not quantity. So the shots on goal, a little deceptive there.
Yeah, that's the one that really jumps out to me. 32-18. Normally, when you see a shot count like that, you would assume it would kind of go the other way. But UMass, they were really effective on the shot count.
Right. It's just that's a matter. The efficiency of UMass really played out there. Try and have their moments, but ultimately UMass the better team.
All right, so that's Pool A. We mentioned that UMass, thanks to that win over Tryon, they're moving on to the semifinals. They win Pool A. Just your thoughts on Pool A as we move to day 3, kind of putting a bow on that one as UMass moves on.
Well, I really feel like UMass probably was the best team in that pool, so the fact they're moving on shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody. They were the national #1 wire to wire, so it's a good job by them to move forward. A good showing by North Carolina State as well in their first trip to the Nationals, and Northern Colorado, and trying that tie on day 1 really kind of set them back for the rest of the day.
Yeah, as we take a look at the Pool A standings there, UMass with that 2-0 record, they have punched their way into the national semifinals. They will be here at the Comerica Center on Monday. Yet to be determined is who they'll play, I believe.
No, we know who they're playing.
We'll get to that one.
Okay, we'll get to that one. First, let's take a look at Pool B. Let's look at Game 3 on the docket. Marion and New Hampshire, the 2-4 matchup in Pool B, and New Hampshire ekes out a win over Marion in this one.
It wasn't much of an eke out. New Hampshire got out to a larger lead. Marion tried to claw their way back into the game. Just too big of a hole, too late to go in that game. And and New Hampshire, I should say, gets the win, and a big win, considering what's coming up on the horizon.
Yeah.
42 shots on goal for the Club Cats, so they really were able to just pepper the Marion goaltending and defense and just put everything they could in front of the Sabres.
Now, Brett, I asked you about New Hampshire. I feel like they're kind of the dark horse to win this thing, someone that could overthrow Florida Gulf Coast. We'll get to that in just a minute. But, Andrew, I wanted to ask you, what have you seen from New Hampshire over the last 2 days?
Well, from what I've seen from New Hampshire, they're a really balanced team. They play really well in all 3 zones. Good offense, relentless attack no matter who they're playing. A good job in the neutral zone to kind of keep their teams at bay. And, of course, the presence of Colin Sullivan in net. You're really not going to get much better than that.
Brendan Sullivan,
I'm sorry.
There you go. You're messing up names again. But no, we joke because we care. But, Brendan Sullivan's played a good tournament thus far. Al Arno's played a good tournament thus far, and to get the veteran leadership out of Rittenauer, who got himself a goal today as well. Balance, got some veteran leadership, some newcomers coming in, the freshmen, mixing it all together and doing a good job.
Now, I mentioned New Hampshire as the dark horse to try and dethrone Florida Gulf Coast from their mantle at the top of Division II. They took on Utah State, Florida Gulf Coast did, and they cruised to victory today, and that sets up a big game tomorrow with New Hampshire. 9-1 the final in this one as the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles get the win. They pretty much dominated from the start of the puck drop in this one.
It was 2-1 after 1, and you're like, well, okay, maybe there might be something here. And then the defending national champions showed why they're the defending national champions. So, Andrew, I think he would agree with me. We were waiting 4 periods for Florida Gulf Coast to be Florida Gulf Coast, and boy, did it come out in the second.
Absolutely. I mean, they were down 1-0 in the first period, but then 9 unanswered goals by the Eagles. And like you said, Brett, that was just the defending national champions coming to play and reminding everybody why they're the defending national champions.
Keep in mind, though, they've given up the first goal 2 games already. They've won them both, but they're going to get New Hampshire tomorrow. You don't want to quite do that against UNH.
Yeah, you'll take a look at the Pool B standings, UNH and Florida Gulf Coast. It's winner. A tie kind of throws it into a little bit of a tizzy, but it is winning you're in for this contest.
But if in this case a tie, Florida Gulf Coast gets it, they've allowed fewer goals.
So.
No, that's it. That's the first tiebreaker. So Gulf Coast advances on a tie. They need at least 1 point to move on, and UNH, they would move on with a win over the defending national champions.
All right, so that's what's going on in Pool B. Let's move on to Pool C. Take a look at the 2-4 matchup in that one. Montana State and Penn State. Penn State, a little bit of a rough start yesterday to the pool play, but they seemed like they righted the ship today.
They figured it out, and they needed to figure it out. Montana State, we know the Cinderella story behind them, but unfortunately they've come to this national tournament, put up a fight in some aspects against Penn State, but the ice line is just too strong for Montana State.
Yeah, Penn State finally woke up. This is their first win in the national tournament. They went 0-3 last year, and the year before that they lost their last day, so they'd gone 4 straight national tournament games without a win. Good to get the monkey off their back for them, and I mean, they really did walk through the Montana State team that, I mean, they showed a lot of heart and a lot of hustle, but they were just really overpowered today.
Yeah, not always do you see a winner-take-all kind of game in day 2. Usually you see those in day 3, but we got to see that in the next game, Game 6, Northeastern against Aquinas, and the Huskies. They have been, at least to me, the surprise. You guys have seen more D2 games than I have, but they seem to be the surprise of this tournament. They win this pool thanks to that win today.
We've seen Northeastern for quite some time, covering Northeast games a lot, and it's not as surprising to me. This was a game, once they got up 1-0, and then Aquinas took a penalty Right soon after that first goal, Roman Malkov took a penalty, and Northeastern scored on a power play, and you could just completely see that game was just about over after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Northeastern put up 4 goals in the first couple of periods. It was just all Huskies right from the get-go. Aquinas made it a game. They scored 1 late to try to cut the deficit down, but Northeastern just slammed the door. And overall, a great game by the Huskies.
And the thing about that too is Aquinas got a little bit frustrated with how Northeastern's physical play. They hit hard, they forecheck hard, and it kind of got Aquinas off their game.
Well, that's surprising to me is Aquinas, they looked so strong yesterday in their game against Montana State, and then for it to kind of unravel on them today against Northeastern, Aquinas was a favorite to win this whole thing, and things just kind of fell apart from them, and they got in penalty trouble. They gave up 10 power plays in this contest. You can't do that if you want to succeed in this tournament.
No, Aquinas had trouble discipline. Even the night before against Montana State, they took a lot of penalties and gave the Bobcats every opportunity to get back into that opening night game. So the lack of discipline for the Saints really was what came back to hurt them.
All right, so let's take a look at the Pool C standings. This pool, they have the tiebreaker over both the Saints and the Ice Lions as they will move on to the semifinals and take on that team out of Pool A.
The NECA matchup, UMass and Northeastern will go out in the national semifinal on Monday, and it is going to be a great matchup. Anytime those two teams get together, it is a great hockey game. They're both very familiar with each other, and ACHA fans are going to be entertained to a great game on Monday.
Yeah, it's two teams with a really strong history, a deep rivalry with one another. As you mentioned, Brett, in the NECA conference, they finish 1 and 2 neck and neck every year. And so, I mean, if you haven't seen either of these teams, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch on Monday afternoon.
All right, so that will be on Monday afternoon here at the Comerica Center. It'll be actually just over our shoulders over on the other rink here joining.
Somewhere back over
Yeah, I think it's just over there. So that will be the one of the two semifinals that we'll see here at the Comerica Center on Monday. The other one will be determined tomorrow as we look on to Pool D, and this has been the interesting pool to watch. No one has really set the tone in this one, and it got even more muddled as Lindenwood woke up again today. They beat Keene State, who had a surprise win on day one.
Well, I mean, we know Keene State's a good team. We've seen them before as well. But Lindenwood, and we said it on the broadcast yesterday on ACHA Tonight, that if Lindenwood didn't wake up early, if they didn't come out and take it to Keene State early, they were going to be in trouble. And sure enough, they took it to Keene State early. It was 4-0 after 1.
Yeah, you see the shots 35-29. What stood out to you in this one, Andrew?
It was just really Lindenwood finally waking up. They got stifled yesterday by a hot Michael Weber in Cincinnati's net. And a good job by the Lions, just play a full 60 minutes today. They got offense from a lot of different players. And a good job by the goaltending of freshman Tyler Osborne as well to stop everything that Keene was throwing at them. Now, one thing I do want to make a note, the final was 7-3. Keene scored a goal with literally 1 second left on the clock. And as we'll get to the tiebreakers later on in this show, it's going to be interesting to see if that one goal does come back to make a difference.
All right, one final note from Keene State I'd like to point out. Philip Sweeney's having a great tournament for them. 4 assists in this contest tonight. That's 7 points in 2 games for him.
Yeah, no, he's played well. Keene State's played well. It's just that today they went up against the Lindenwood team that had everything to play for.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to note about Keene State, their power play is absolutely lethal. All 4 goals today scored were all in the power play. They had another 3 last night. They are 7 for 14 on the man advantage in this tournament. And I'm no mathematician, but that sounds like 50% to me.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the final game. This was the game of the night in Pool D, Cincinnati and Northern Arizona. I'm going to ask my TD, Andrew, if he can cue up that final from that game. Lou Gamlin on the call, losing his voice on this one. Take a listen.
Around, try it's loose right at the doorstep. Here comes Cincinnati. Puck loose at the blue line, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, and he scores!
Now you see Cincinnati scoring there with 1 second left in the overtime. Northern Arizona pulled the tender, but they had to.
They absolutely did because Northern Arizona was playing for their season. They knew that a loss would eliminate them from contention. A tie wouldn't have eliminated them, but it really would have given them the shovel to kind of dig themselves out of their own grave. And high risk, and unfortunately, it just didn't pay off there for the Ice Jacks.
But that actually would have ended their season. That's why they pulled the goalie, because there was no chance. I was actually on one of the cameras doing that game, and I was doing the math in my head. So it would have knocked them out. They were done if they had tied or lost, obviously. Go for broke. And this was a great game, though. They were up 3-0 before Cincinnati came roaring back with 4 straight. a penalty shot tied it before and sent it to overtime.
I say it was obviously the game of the day. As we take a look at the stats from that one, 5-4 the overtime, 57 shots for the Bearcats in this one as they were able to claw back into this one. It's always interesting to me when you get pool games like this where you get into an overtime situation and you have to think about the numbers and stuff. You start pulling goaltenders in overtime, not trying to just play for the tie, but you have to get that win.
Yeah, and Coach Johansson of Northern Arizona, he had a really tough decision to make because Josh Nolan played so well for the Ice Jacks today. He just couldn't stop everything that came his way. And Cincinnati, I mean, you mentioned it, Brett, they were down 3-0, 30 seconds into the third period. They switched goaltenders. They pulled Michael Weber for Sebastian Mallette and then proceeded to score 4 goals in a row. Now, after the penalty shot goal by Desmond Conley, Mallette came out, and back into the net went Weber, who backstopped his team all the way to a victory.
Now, you were part of that call with Lou on that game. From watching it over here at Comerica Center, it looked like the atmosphere of that game was just unreal.
Oh, absolutely. I spoke about it after the game with the Cincinnati team, and their fans, they always travel so well, such great support. And the Northern Arizona fans, I mean, they came such a long way to be here. Northern Arizona, a perennial national contender. They still haven't seemed to find a way to get to that second level of the tournament, but you can feel it. They are just right there.
And my camera was right in front of the Cincinnati fans. My ears were ringing after the game. That has to be, to me, the loudest fans I've heard so far in D2.
And definitely the most memorable moment from the tournament across the division so far in this tournament. And you'd love to see pool games like that. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's get to the numbers. Let's look at the Pool D standings as they stand right now. And it comes down to a big game as Keene State gets to take on that third seed game. And that's going to be the one that kind of sets things off in this one. If Keene State can get the win, this could be a really interesting finish to this pool.
Right. I mean, Cincinnati has got their own destiny.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If Cincinnati wins that game, everything's over, and then the second game is just nothing.
Or a tie as well.
Or a tie as well, yes. So, but now if you get a Keene State victory, then we get to that goals allowed, possible goal differential. We got to see what Lindenwood does later on in the night. There's a lot of help that goes along with it.
Yeah, Keene State victory starts the merry-go-round, as we like to say, as they would then have a head-to-head over Cincinnati with both teams sitting at 2-1. A Lindenwood game later on, that could determine everything. As you mentioned, Brett, it comes down to goals against, overall wins. I mean, there's a laundry list of tiebreakers, but the bottom line is Cincinnati with a point, they move on. Keene State with a win, they have to wait and hope for a Northern Arizona win later that day as well.
And one other thing to it, if Cincinnati loses 1-0, they move on regardless.
So it's basically all the power is in Cincinnati, and that's got to speak bounds for them as they got 2 wins against the top 2 seeds in this pool, and they have positioned themselves well. You win and you're in. Same thing for them.
Pretty much, and for Cincinnati, the destiny is in your hands. A win or a tie, you're on to the next round against either Florida Gulf Coast or University of New Hampshire.
All right, so let's take a look at the schedule for tomorrow over at Plano as it kicks off bright and early, 10 a.m. 2 games going on, Marion, Utah State, final games of the season for both of those 2 teams. Keene State, Cincinnati, the big game at 10:30. That'll be the one to watch.
Yeah, that's game number 1 to watch, to see if that's going to set off anything else coming later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interested to see how Keene responds after a tough loss today. We spoke to Coach Bobby Rodriguez before today's game about a tight turnaround after a 10:30 game the night before and having a rough game today against Lindenwood. Now they're playing right away at 10:30 tomorrow against a very tough, very capable Cincinnati team.
And take a look at the 1 and 1:30 games. NC State and Trine, those 2 teams will end their seasons tomorrow as well. Montana State and Northeastern. Northeastern has already clinched their spot. Montana State will be kind of just looking for some momentum, trying to get a positive note to end their season.
Yeah, the fairy tale season will come to an end tomorrow for Montana State. 3 of those 4 teams just playing for pride at this point, but trying to finish on a high note.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You always want to go out with a win, especially if it's your first national tournament.
All right, let's take a look at the nightcap starting at 4 o'clock Central Time. Penn State will take on Aquinas. Those teams have been eliminated from the tournament. That'll be at 4 o'clock. 4:30, we see another good matchup between Northern Colorado and UMass. UMass has punched their ticket. Northern Colorado looking for some momentum. You see Lindenwood and Northern Arizona. Depending on what happens in that Cincinnati game, that game could play a factor. But the big game on that docket, 7:30, Florida Gulf Coast in New Hampshire.
And I'm on that game for the defending national champions against UNH. They met in the semifinals last year. It's going to be a fantastic game and a great finish to group play.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's a really great way to just close the curtain on pool play. Sets things up really well for Monday afternoon as well, right here at the Comerica Center, as you mentioned. We already know one semifinal. It's going to be UMass against Northeastern. I'm looking forward to see who gets the second one.
All right, so we'll find that out tomorrow. 8 games on the docket at Plano, the final day of pool play over there before the league switches over here to Comerica Center in Frisco, Texas. Andrew, Brett, thank you guys so much for staying up with us a little late tonight, and go get some rest and have fun tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt.
All right, we'll take one other break. We come back. Rasty McGibbon has an interview with us as we roll on here on ACHA Tonight. That's coming up in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere. You're watching ACHA Tonight here from Frisco, Texas.
There are a few things that come along that change the course of history. Inventions or developments that reshape society. They usually aren't appreciated at first. In fact, they're often scoffed at. What good will that be?
Hello?
Hi.
Surely that can't be practical.
She loves to see you.
But then, slowly, over time, the greatness of these achievements become manifest.
Hi!
Until one day, you ask yourself how you ever lived without them. That's the nature of turning points. They bring us to new roads and new heights. They open doors we never thought possible. So it's important that we go forward together.
I'm here with Gina.
That our growth
She's okay.
might not just benefit the great, but the good also. In small ways, and in grand ones.
Dad.
The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little.
At Wilson Electronics, we push every day to amplify the power of communication, to connect those who love and those who cannot live without it.
Come on! You know the answer. You studied for this. Come on. Timmy! Come on, Timmy. You got this, son. Pencil to paper. Focus.
Timmy, focus. Focus. Take the puck. There you go. Skate. Skate. Pass it. You call that a pass? What are you doing? You missed the puck. Come on.
Is that right?
Welcome back to ACHA Tonight. I'm Rasty McGibbon, and we have a special guest on with us, Mo Strimmel. And by title, you are the Director of Hockey Operations for the ACHA, which I'm a little suspicious, maybe kind of a catchphrase, as you're kind of a handyman and do everything. Just talk to us a little bit about your job description and what you do.
Well, I think a more appropriate title might be Director of Operations, because a lot of the operations don't have anything necessarily to do with hockey because they're administrative. But the season begins with registration for 530 teams and around 15,000 players and coaches, and that's a pretty logistically that's a pretty big task. So that's the very first thing that is on my plate right off the bat. And once we get that rolling, then we get into our season, we get into the games, we get into rulings that come up, decisions that have to be made, some disciplinary action possibly, eligibility status for different players and teams. So, and then I also am sort of a traffic control. So a lot of questions will come in, or emails, phone calls, and in some cases I may have to redirect those to commissioners, to the executive director. Some maybe go back to the executive board. So in that way, I'm sort of the air traffic controller for the league as well.
I mean, you talk a little bit about registration. What sort of timeline are you looking at to get 15,000 players registered?
It's a pretty daunting task because most of the time a lot of teams don't have their team composed until late August, beginning of September. And most of them will be playing games by the end of September or the beginning of October. So it's a very quick turnaround time for us. The teams that may have a little more information can get started earlier, but that time frame is pretty quick for us to get all those teams registered. And so it is the bulk of my work in that part of the season. So we have to make sure that everybody's getting all the appropriate information put in, that everybody is eligible, so that we can make sure that everybody can play. Yep.
So, kind of tagging on to that, I know that you also had a Division III team that went to Siberia in Russia back in October. Just talk a little bit about that and your involvement and the success you guys had over there.
Yeah, so we took what we call our select teams. We took a men's Division III select team over to Russia to compete in the Student Hockey Challenge over there. We were in Krasnoyarsk, Russia, which was in Siberia this past year. Paul Hebert, the president of the association, puts the team concept together, and then we have coaches who are selected, and then they select team players. And I sort of act as the administrator and the manager of the team while we're there, and to get us up and going, because traveling to Russia obviously is not just crossing the border into Canada, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of logistics to get going for that. Once we get over there, we play against some European teams and some Russian teams, and while we weren't quite as successful as we wanted to be on the ice necessarily, the cultural experience for the student athletes is amazing, and it's very valuable. I travel a lot. Travel is something that actually brings the world closer, because you actually get to know the people. And I would say that everyone that I met in Russia treated us very well. They were very nice. I think it gives our student athletes a chance to see that really deep down, the people around the world. The governments may disagree, and the politics, if you take that out of it, the people around the world, we tend to be pretty much the same people. So we got along very well. Everybody treated us very well, and it was a great experience. And we plan to go back next year and actually do a lot better on the ice.
So you talk a little bit about maybe not having the success on the ice. What would you say are a couple takeaway wins for the league as a whole just from that experience?
Well, I think we're actually developing a relationship with both the Russian teams and the European teams that is actually helping expand both their experience and our experience. I think we also, as being a part of that, we are also bringing some of the expertise that we have dealing with administrations, schools, and how we form our organization to them, and helping them grow their organizations as well. And that's kind of exciting, because they actually are. We actually have meetings with them. We sit down. We have question and answer sessions with them that allow them to ask us how we've gotten to where we are, and hopefully we're going to help them grow. And then that international competition and international relationship becomes rather significant for us.
So do you really feel this is kind of like, maybe not the start, but this is just another chapter in the progression of the ACHA's relationship with European and Asian teams?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there, not just for hockey, but for just international relationships. And I think it's important, especially in the world we live in today, that we have those things going on. And we can be ambassadors. So, that's part of our job when we're over there.
What do you think about just exposure, for the ACHA, being there with the logo, with the guys? What do you think that does for the league?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, I think we are the largest college hockey association in the world, and our standing and our reputation around the world is actually pretty amazing. I mean, they look up to us, and they look to us for some guidance and to help them understand how our athletics relates to our academics, and how our athletics relates to our institutions. So,
when you talk about the biggest organization for hockey in the world, speak just a little bit about how the league is growing, and you can kind of lump all five together if you want to talk just about D2. Just speak a little bit to the expansion, and it's not like you're really seeding expansion. Expansion is coming to you.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of my jobs is to oversee the application process for new teams, and we've gotten, I would say that next year we may be close to, well, we may be over 560 in teams across 5 divisions. The scope of this organization, we are a national organization. We are literally coast to coast. So my phone can start ringing at 8 or 9 in the morning, and it often doesn't stop till midnight or later, because we have people on the West Coast that are still doing business. Sure. And so we have to continue to do business with them. And it's a 7-day-a-week operation for us in season. Mondays are usually a little bit lighter because everybody's been doing hockey all weekend, and they sort of want to set it aside on Mondays. So Mondays are a little bit easier. But every other day of the week, with that many teams and that many student athletes, coaches, staff around the country, there's always something going on. So there's always something that needs attending to in some way. It could be just that we need to give them a little help, or give them some guidance or steer them in the right direction. But we have teams just since I've been here over what day are we in? Two or three.
We're in day 3
I get a little
D1, day 2 of D2.
Yeah, so just in the time we've been here, I've probably had a half a dozen or 8 inquiries about forming a new team. So that's pretty amazing. And when you think about the logistics of this, we're not running a national tournament. We're running 5 national tournaments in 10 days. I mean, the scope of that is amazing. And the fact that it's running very smoothly. Obviously, there's some hiccups here and there, but it's to be expected, and we work through them. The team that's here, the commissioners, the board members that are here, the broadcast staff,
executive directors,
the executive directors. The executive director and I are like, we work together so closely, and we're on the same page. Craig Barnett is our executive director, and we're basically a 2-person team, like a bobsled team. We work together in sync about everything that we do. So it's pretty crazy. But the fact that this all goes off as smoothly as it does is a testament to everybody that's working at this tournament.
So I think we're at 531 teams as we sit right here, right now today, talking about maybe getting up to around 560. How much work goes into your job with those 30 teams and mentoring and parenting and bringing them up to the league standard and helping to maintain their program as they kind of get the first year under their belt?
Well, my main mission as far as the new applications goes is to basically process them, get them out to the people that need to look at them, make sure that the teams have the appropriate budgets in place, make sure that they know what they're doing with their schedules and stuff, to make sure that they're going to be viable as they come in. And then the commissioners really mentor them along at their level, because each of the divisions may have slightly different requirements and needs. So the commissioners, at the commissioner level, that mentoring tends to happen at that level. But at the same time, both myself and Craig are there as a resource for the commissioners when some questions come up that maybe we don't have something that covers that, and we have to sort of figure out that particular question.
So not that we're fishing for business at 1:20 a.m., but some people may tune in and watch this, okay? And let's say that there's a school out there doesn't have an ACHA club. What would you tell them in terms of getting in contact to get the information to maybe make a decision on whether their program is right for the ACHA?
Well, the very first thing I tell people to do is to go and talk to your club sports department or whoever is going to oversee the team, because you really have to start at the school level, because you really need them on your side. You need to develop a budget. You need to find out what other teams are in a travel distance that makes sense for your program, whatever that may be, right? If there's a league near you, you should contact the ACHA, whatever that league is, to find out if they may have an interest in helping you also, because you may want to join that league. And then once you sort of have those things in line, then I usually direct people on our website. You can go and look up our policy manual, which explains all of the rules and policies about becoming a member. but you can also, we have a standardized application that's on there, and you can pull that down, and it's a PDF format, so you can go ahead and fill that out. But you really have to start at your school level, because we want the school folks involved in it, because if you have their support, the likelihood of success is greater.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that they're behind you, and they can also help you and guide you in the implementation of your plan, because you're going to need them there to do that.
I've seen the banners around, you've probably seen them too, that they have this year at the national tournament, and it says 72 games, 5 national championships in 10 days, which is almost probably got to be a Guinness World Record, okay? Talk a little bit about what you've seen just in, I've seen you at Division I, you've been down with us there at Division II in Plano. Just talk about the quality of product that has been put together and that we're not only providing for the student athletes that are participating, but also for these broadcasts for people at home. I mean, you've been doing this for a while. This is, this isn't your first rodeo, so to speak, Lucky. So, I mean, talk to us about what it means and what we've put together.
Okay. Well, we have, I've been coming to national tournaments since 1994, and as a coach, and I can tell you that they were not like this. We have come a long way. It's a huge, huge thing, and the quality of play is there's been a couple former NHL players. There are a couple former NHL players coaching for us. There are former NHL players around. They know the quality of the product that we put out. We've had some observers here this week already who have said they're pretty amazed at the quality and the level of play that they've seen at our national tournament. And I think once I usually tell people, we're not the NCAA, we're not varsity programs where we are. But if you come and watch us play, you're going to get hooked, because the level of play is amazing. And the commitment of these players, these players do not receive scholarships. They're playing for the love of the game. A lot of our coaches are volunteers. They're doing it for the love of the game. The heart that you will see at our tournament is as big as any heart you're going to see anywhere. And I think that's just an amazing part of our organization. It's the people that you meet, the players. They're here because they love it.
Last question for you, and we'll wrap it up, as the sun will be up soon. What's on the horizon? And that's why I said the sun will be up soon. What's on the horizon for the ACHA? Like, what do you see just over the hill that is new and upcoming, for the ACHA in the direction that they continue to go?
Well, I think for us, the growth is a natural thing. It's happening anyway. You know what I mean? I think the big thing for us is going to be to make sure that growth is in an organized way, and so that as we grow, we maintain the standards that we have and that we're trying to improve. So I think that's the big thing. I think we have to manage our growth in a way that makes sure that every team is getting the attention it needs too, because a lot of the teams, we don't want to leave somebody behind. We want everybody to come along for the ride. So to go with the rodeo metaphor.
Good.
So
good. I like it. There's a story behind that. We'll save it for another night. Well, I'm Rasty McGibbon, and Mo, thanks so much for being on, staying up late for us, and we're going to send you back to the studio, but thank you so much for being with us, ACHA Tonight. We'll be back in just a moment.
The answer. You studied for this. Come on. Timmy. Come on, Timmy. You got this, son. Pencil to paper. Focus.
Come on, Timmy. Focus. Focus. Take the puck. There you go. Skate. Skate. Pass it. You call that a pass? What are you doing? You missed the puck. Come on.
And welcome back to ACHA tonight, putting a bow on day 3 here at the 2019 ACHA National Championship Tournament. I'm Matt Coma. Glad you guys could join us. Burning the midnight oil here, just past the 1 o'clock hour here in Frisco, Texas. Thank you guys so much for joining us late tonight. We'll say goodbye, but first, let's take a look at our 3 stars of the night. Your number 1 star from Iowa State in Division I, Mike Godeke. He gets a 26-save shutout in today's win over Stony Brook. He gets the number 1 star nod. The number 2 star goes to Philip Sweeney. We talked about him with Brett and Andrew. 4 assists in the game today. That's 7 points in 2 games for Sweeney as he takes the 2nd star of the night. Your 3rd star of the night from NC State, Joey Hall, the goaltender for the Wolfpack. 54 saves on 59 shots in their win this afternoon. He picks up 3rd star of the night honors for his club. That'll do it for us here for ACHA tonight. We want to thank everyone for watching. We want to thank everyone that joined us on the set, for Quinn, for Brett, for Rasty, for Andrew, for Mo, for everybody here with ACHA tonight. We'd like to thank Andrew, our director, AJ, our executive producer, Josh, our director as well, Justin helping out as well on cameras. I'm Matt Coma signing off tonight from day 3. We'll see you tomorrow as we kick off another slate of 12 games from Division I and Division II. D2 wraps up pool play, the round of 8 in Division I here at the Comerica Center. We'll have it all for you right here on the ACHA Network on YouTube. Have a great rest of the night, everybody. We'll see you bright and early, 10 a.m. in Plano and Frisco for the first games of the day, and we'll have them all streaming for you throughout the day on the ACHA website. Have a great night. We'll sign off from here from Frisco, Texas. We'll see you tomorrow for day 4 of the National Championship Tournament. Have a good night, everybody.